In this video, will be our first Edpuzzle, our first flipped classroom experience, and I'm hoping to make this a positive one. I think this way we'll have more time in class, ask questions, and work with groups and collaborate. And a stressful time doing homework. The only homework you have is to watch this video and answer the questions in the video. If I'm ever going too fast in the video for you, you could always pause it, or if you missed something and you weren't paying attention, you could always go back and rewatch certain parts. But please remember you have to watch this video on Edpuzzle, not on YouTube or anywhere else, because there are questions in the video. So if you're doing other things, I would pause those other distractions and make sure we are focused on this Edpuzzle and doing the best that we can. In this first lesson, we are going to be talking about adding integers. So I can add integers is going to be our I can statement. But first, let's quickly review what an integer is. An integer is a number, not a whole number, but a number without a fraction. So today we're talking about adding and subtracting numbers that are not fractions or decimals. So we won't get to those right now. We'll get to those eventually, but for now, this is what we are talking about. So in words, adding integers with the same sign, so if they're both positive or both negative, this is what the category is. You add the absolute value of the integers and you keep the sign. So for example, if I have 9 plus 8, you notice how my signs are the same. If my signs are the same, you take the absolute value of both and you add them together. So in this case, the absolute value of 9 is 9, absolute value of 8 is 8, 9 plus 8 is 17. And you keep the same sign. So in this case, since both numbers are positive, my final answer is positive. Another example I want to go over is if I have negative 7 plus a negative 8. Notice how my signs are the same. So this is the category that it falls under. You still add the absolute values of the integers. You notice how I have 7 and 8, right? So 7 plus 8 is 15. But in this case, you have to keep the same sign. If both my integers are negative, then my final answer also has to be negative as well. So example number 1, negative 1 plus negative 4. Notice how my signs are the same first. So I add the absolute value. I add the absolute value of both numbers. So my absolute value of 1 is 1. Plus 4, I get 5. But because these numbers are negative, negative here, my final answer also has to be negative. You do not have to use a number line to check your answer. Two numbers that are the same distance from 0 but on opposite sides of 0 are called opposites. For example, negative 3 and 3 are opposites. So why is this important? We'll get to it in a sec. So now we're going to talk about how to add integers with different signs. So if one is positive, one is negative, or one is negative, one is positive, this is what we use to add integers as such. So in this problem, subtract the more, whatever is more or bigger, minus the less or the small number. Forget about the signs. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is take the sign of the more or bigger number, and that is it. So for example, if I have 8 plus a negative 10, right? Subtract the more minus less. Forget about the signs. My bigger number is 10, right? So I take 10 minus 8 and I get 2. And then my final step is take the sign of the more or bigger number. So in my original problem, which one was bigger, 8 or negative 10? It was negative 10. The sign of that is negative, so my final answer has to be negative. Another example I want to do is, for example, I have negative 13 plus 17. You still subtract the bigger number. It looks like 17 minus 13. That is 4, right? And then step 2, take the sign of the more bigger number. Negative 13 or 17, which absolute value was bigger? 17 was bigger, and that is positive, so my final answer is positive. Okay, so now let's do example number 2. 5 plus a negative 10. Notice how my signs are different. Like one is positive, one is negative. So I'm going to subtract 10 minus 5. I get 5. But remember, I take the sign of my bigger number. In this problem, my negative 10 is larger, so I add a negative sign right there. Example B, same thing, negative 3 plus 7. Which one is bigger? That always comes first. So it'd be 7 minus 3. Remember, you forget about the original signs. You get 7 minus 3, and you get 4. So now always refer back to the original problem. Which one was a bigger number? 7. And 7 was positive. So that's why my final answer is going to be positive as well. All right, last property we are going to talk about is the additive inverse property. I think this is the easiest property there is. The sum of an integer and its opposite is 0. What that means is if I have 6 plus, if I add the opposite of 6, which is negative 6, so if 6 plus negative 6, that is always going to be equal to 0. So just in generic algebraic terms, if I have letter A plus a negative A, that is always going to be 0. All right, example number 3, I have negative 12 plus 12. Notice how these are opposites of each other, so that means my final sum is 0. So on your own, why don't you try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and put these answer on to Edpuzzle. If you get these wrong, I would say retry them and try to fix them. If not, reach out to me for help. You can ask me in class the next day, or you could text me or remind, whatever is convenient for you. All right, moving on to example number 4. The list shows 4 bank account transactions. In July, find the change C in the account balance. Okay, so now let's take a look. So it looks like I withdrew $40 out of my, I'm losing $40, and then I added 50. So let's see, I have negative 40 plus 50. So notice how my signs are different, so I'm going to use subtraction, right? So 50 minus 40 is equal to 10. My final answer is positive because 50 is bigger. So from after here, I have $10. And look, let's see what I did. I deposited 75, so that means I add 75. So I have 10 plus 75. That's pretty simple. That's 85. So at the end of this deposit of 85, my last one, I have a withdrawal of 50. So I have 85 plus a negative 50. Notice how my signs are different. So I'm going to subtract 85 minus 50. And when I do that, you get 35. And see if my final answer is positive or negative. In this case, it's positive. Why? Because my large number, which is 85, is positive. So my final answer is I end up with a $35 bank account. So this last one on your own, what if there are 3 more transactions? Why don't you finish reading this problem and try it on your own and submit it into Edpuzzle. Once you finish that, make sure you circle your level of understanding and you watch the video all the way up to here. Tomorrow we are going to do just an assignment in class, just a worksheet or an activity that I want to know if you have mastery on, and then there will be another Edpuzzle tomorrow night. So hopefully this was not too bad for you, and I will see you all tomorrow. Let me know if you have any questions.